Sometimes God doesn't speak in thunder. He doesn't always part the clouds, or send miracles to prove his presence. Sometimes he simply waits. In the stillness, in the wind, in the earth that still remembers his touch. We often think our faith has faded. But maybe faith doesn't die. It only falls asleep, waiting for the moment when our hearts grow quiet enough to hear again. This is the story of a man who searched for God in words, but found him instead in silence, in the whisper of wheat, in the breath of the living earth. He lived in a small village at the foot of a hill, where morning smelled of dew and wood smoke, and every sunrise painted the fields gold. His days were simple. He worked the soil, mended fences, came home tired, and fell asleep to the sound of rain tapping against the roof. In his youth, he had prayed before every day began. But over the years, his prayers faded, like ink washed away by time. Sometimes he still looked toward the sky, but he felt nothing. Only the ache of routine, and the silence that came when heaven didn't answer back. He started to believe that maybe God had gone somewhere else. That faith was something people talked about when they needed hope more than truth. One night, as the wind howled outside his window, he whispered into the dark, "Lord, if you're still here, show me something. Anything." There was no reply. Only the storm. The next morning, without knowing why, he took his walking stick and wandered beyond the village, where the fields were bare and cracked. The path wound between old willow trees, their roots twisting like prayers that had never reached heaven. He walked until his legs grew heavy, then stopped on a small rise overlooking the land. That's when he saw it. A tiny sprout pushing through a crack in the dry earth. It was so fragile, so small, and yet alive. He crouched down and touched it gently. The ground was warm beneath his hand. Alive, breathing. Then the wind changed. It softened. The air filled with the scent of rain and soil. And for a moment, everything stood still. He didn't hear words. But deep inside, something spoke. A quiet knowing. A presence that had always been there. He stayed until the sun sank behind the hill. That night, for the first time in years, he didn't pray with words. He simply breathed. And peace came like a long-forgotten song. When he returned home, everything looked the same. But everything felt different. The fire in his stove seemed warmer. The water from the well tasted fresh. And even the old tree by his porch rustled not with wind, but with prayer. He realized then, God had never left. He had just been speaking in a language the man had forgotten to understand. From that day on, each morning he walked to the field, placed his hand on the soil, and listened. Not for words, but for life. For presence. For that quiet heartbeat that connects heaven and earth. And with every sunrise, he felt closer to the one who once breathed life into dust, and still whispers his name to the ground beneath our feet. Sometimes we say, God is silent. But maybe it's not silence. Maybe it's our noise drowning him out. He doesn't always speak through miracles. Sometimes he speaks through a seed breaking open in dry soil, through the wind brushing your face, through the peace that follows surrender. And when you finally stop searching for signs in the sky, and start listening to the ground beneath your feet, you'll realize something beautiful. The earth still remembers his name. And it's been waiting. For you to remember it too.